Good evening, Mayor and Council. It is now 7 o'clock and we are live.
Okay, well, let's start up. Let me call we don't have a workshop beforehand. This is the regular meeting, right? Yeah, so let me call it to order. Let's do a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all. Let's do a roll call. I see our city attorney, Christian, is here. And I see on my left Molly, Jeff, and Amber, and on my right Pam and Dan, and the city administrator. Is anyone online from the council?
No, Mayor.
All right, I'll hold roll to open for a while. And then let's go on to public comment. So, as this is a public meeting, this is the first opportunity for public comment. You can talk about any topic you want for up to 3 minutes, except if you want to talk about the one public hearing we're having. There is a public hearing regarding the proposed Fishkill Creek Development District, a change in the language of the ordinance. There was we had thought we were scheduling a meeting for 248 Tyranda. That is canceled per request of the applicant, so that won't be happening. But if you do want to talk about the proposed local law after it's introduced, just hold your comments for that. All right, so you can have anything but that one, and I'll guide you if there's any issue. So just finishing up roll call, I see Paloma, so everyone is here, and that completes the roll call. Katie Helmut, you're up first. Which one? Okay, yeah, so then wait, sorry. Teresa Kraft.
She was on the phone outside.
Oh, all right. Clark Gedman, welcome.
Good evening, Clark Gedman, 2 Wilson Street. I think one of the greatest challenges facing this small city's government that stands on the heels of an iconic idea of what is the Hudson Valley and how progressive the voice of the Hudson Valley resonates in terms of the lives of the citizens of Beacon. And we have some pretty accomplished, pretty intelligent members of the council. And it seems to me that there has not been sufficient recognition of the importance of clarity and transparency in the management of the opportunities the council holds in their hand. It cannot be denied that the council has not grabbed the opportunity to create a more transparent, more communicative governance of the city's affairs. The voice grows hoarse from repeating time and time again with little meaningful response that we've entered a new era and new challenges for governments to really effectively report all the minutia of activity with clarity before documents are approved and after, to demonstrate the intent of good governance. There are so many opportunities within the short distance from the borders of this city, for the city to take positions as to the greater area and the importance of a certain
15 seconds.
clarity in terms of the mission of the region to grow. And I think it's important for the council to really think twice about its
Your
not
time
just
has elapsed.
reputation, but its legacy for the time that you each spend here.
Thank you. Teresa Kraft.
Good evening, thank you. I hope everyone is paying attention. The Fishkill self-storage at the intersection of 9D and the bridge is moving through the Town of Fishkill Planning Board, with the members questioning the board chair if they ever heard back from the City of Beacon. As City of Beacon residents, we will be impacted by this daily, and our quality of life will alter, and not for the better. The developer's professional team of lawyers, architects, and planners are proposing sending untrained rental truck drivers into our Beacon city limits, weaving in and out of side streets to turn around is a personal attack on the quality of life of all Fishkill and the City of Beacon residents. As part of their design pitch, they are proposing a future right lane ramp onto Route 84, pressing a new expressway to the highway from that parcel. Contrary to what was shared at last week's Town of Fishkill meeting during the public hearing by the applicant's representative, I believe this project will have a huge impact at this location. Just because other large projects pass through the Town of Fishkill boards does not make this acceptable. The last statement is that a commercial unit along this intersection is nothing new. That high-density development only exists on the north side of Route 84 highway and not on the south side towards Beacon. Adding more traffic and light pollution is only piling on more bad development. They should follow their own town code stating self-storage is not permitted at this parcel. Remember the recent large fire in Wapentrew Falls at the storage facility off Route 9? That could have been a toxic fireball to the entire community. These owners have no way to regulate what is stored in these units. Other community residents spoke out loud at that meeting last week about the existing panhandlers on that exit and the entrance ramps, and the potential for vagrants to congregate and live at these units. They said it could be worse. It could be a hotel. They voiced that out loud in their speech. I agree, a hotel is not ideal at this location either. We need to fight this overdevelopment one proposal at a time. They're asking for a reply from the city of Beacon. I've been to those meetings and they have not received anything. I hope as a table board, you do voice the concerns of the residents of Beacon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joseph O'Brien, Applegate.
Hi, thank you. And I think I marked myself down for the public hearing in error, so I'm just making a general comment.
Okay.
First of all, thank you to the mayor and the council for the time and opportunity to speak tonight. I'm Joe O'Brien Applegate. I reside in Ward 3. I'm here to urge you all to reconsider the planned Fishkill Avenue improvements that would not currently include bike lanes and would actually prohibit their construction in their currently proposed form. This would mean that putting in bike lanes would require a large infrastructure project at some point in the future, and the obvious time to make that change is now. I've chosen to live in Beacon largely because of how I can access almost all my needs through walking or biking through the city, with huge proposed developments in downstate and Camp Beacon that are on the horizon. I can see if people want to move here, they would want the same amenities, and creating a connection from that end of Fishkill Avenue to Main Street would be a priority, not least because it would alleviate some impending parking issues that I'm sure would arise from those developments if they all felt they had to make the 5-minute drive instead of walking or biking. But this is also a serious matter for the most vulnerable in the city. When I moved here, the first week I was here, the first thing I heard about biking in the city was that someone had been struck and killed on Route 52. And, that was 5 years ago, and nothing has changed. This is, not someone that was, a recreational cyclist, not, someone of privilege like myself. So someone that had no other means of getting to work than riding their bike down Fishkill Avenue. And, as of right now, we're choosing to, really sacrifice the most vulnerable by not protecting them and continuing to, really prolong the danger along Fishkill Avenue. This isn't something that's part of a, bucolic future. This isn't something that is going to, be able to be addressed 5 or 10
15
years
seconds.
down the line. They were sacrificing those without any other option, and the time to implement change is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ali Mohammed. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. It's a pleasure to be back. You guys are doing excellent. We're here to represent the spirit of Beacon Day. It's September 29th, Sunday, September 29th. There will be music from 11 to 4 o'clock. We have so many different people that's signed up as parade participants, lots of vendors, lots of sponsors. We're excited, so we just need the people to show up, whoever's viewing this. If you guys as council members can share with your constituents. If you could be there, obviously most of you will be marching anyway. We're honoring more people. We have a memoriam award for a few people that have passed in Beacon. We are honoring some families. We're honoring Dennis Pavlak. Thank you, Mayor, for that suggestion. I appreciate that. We're excited. Since the pandemic, it's been difficult, but great people have led the way. We have a strong team. You guys have been amazing with your help and your support, and I'm glad to be here. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you September 29th. All right.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else want to make a general comment, not specific to one of the public hearings? This will be your moment. Seeing none in the physical audience, anyone in the virtual audience? Ben?
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment, you will need to use the raise hand option at the bottom of your screen. If you're joining by phone, you will need to press *9. And if you're watching on YouTube, you will need to join us on Zoom by visiting beaconny.gov, going to our calendar, and joining from the link there. Mayor, as of now, we have no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. So let's go forward to public hearing. So again, there were 2 that were slated based on council votes, and the one that we're not having is concerning 248 Tyranda. They have to do an amended concept plan, and they're not ready yet, so they requested a adjournment or a cancellation. And I'm told there's no motion needed for that. And so I just want to let people know that if you want to comment on 248, that's not up tonight. What is up is what Christian will introduce, which is a change to our Fishkill Creek Development District, which would concern certificates of occupancy. So if you would explain that so the audience would understand it, we'd start up the hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. So currently before the council is a proposed local law to amend the essentially issuance of certificate of occupancy for developments within the Fishkill district in order to open up any type of building, whether or not it's residential or non-residential. A certificate of occupancy has to be issued first. And so this proposed law would grant the city council the flexibility and in order to issue certificates of occupancy for residential units or artist work live spaces prior to the completion of the non-residential uses. So for example, the Fishkill Creek Development District are required to have a portion of it be non-residential. However, you can't open up the residential until both are completed. They have to be built out and constructed and completed concurrently in order for either of them to be used. So with this proposed local law, the council would have the discretion and also the ability to impose conditions as it deems appropriate to allow the residential components to be opened.
Okay. So for those wanting to make a comment, I've opened up the public hearing. And Katie, is this one you want to talk on? Or, okay, sure. Come on up.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity in considering this law. My name is Katie Helmuth of Ward 1 and a Little Beacon blog. I am in favor of the local law amending Chapter 223 of the Beacon City Code concerning Fishkill Creek Development Zoning District. For the past 10 years, I have watched different city councils create laws to restrict building of residential and commercial spaces in Beacon. At one point, near the time of 2017, the movement was called the Anti-Development Group, and one of its most vocal and effective leaders was Dan Amar Blair, councilperson now. During that time, the water moratorium was placed in Beacon, which stalled all building projects in the name of there being not enough water. The block was found to be not credible, and there was enough water for everyone. There was also scare language spoken saying that the schools would fill up if people kept moving to Beacon. That also never happened. These scare tactics were used against different building projects like Edgewater, which has now begun construction and is opening for new residents. In 2017, according to last week's article in the Highlands Current, a rule was created by the City Council that restricted a developer from building residential units if the commercial space was not complete. A new rule was also created that mandated a percentage of the space of that building project would be made for commercial space. Today, we have empty office space on Main Street. I just left a space where I rented a desk. The space had been for rent for $7,200. It's beautiful, renovated. When it was on the market, the realtor told them they could get even more, so they tried for $7,900. But it didn't get rented for $7,900. It's now trying for $7,000 and still holding out. I have since moved to Wappingers. The former Antelek and Moore building, after selling for a large sum of money, sat empty for a long time. It is only recently that what used to be the Antelek and Moore office is now being renovated. I don't know who is filling the space or if it is just being renovated. The space was offered at market unrenovated. Maybe it was the old-timey look that made a difference. Now you have a developer, Bernard Cohn, owner of 248 Tyranda Avenue, which by its size and location must offer commercial space and residential apartments. Bernard is telling you that he cannot find businesses to fill the commercial space he is willing to build out. He is telling you that this business model that you want is not working in Beacon. In the Highlands Current article, Councilperson Dan is quoted as saying, the council didn't create this problem. But in my view, the council did create this problem. The council has impacted business models, and it is not listening to if they work or not. The council also did this to the former Reformed Church of Beacon. Hopeful developers called Prophecy Hall bought the property and faced thick restrictions to them developing their venue-based business model. This council restricted their hours of operation, restricted days they could have had events, and set a curfew for when the events must end. The main problem is family housing. So if you're going to do this, consider flipping the rule so that it's required that units of 3 to 4 bedrooms be built instead of commercial space, because families are growing up here, growing out of their apartments, and do not have houses to move into. Thank you.
Thank you. On the hearing, I've got Teresa Kraft.
Teresa Kraft. I believe revising the existing code would severely undermine the mixed-use purpose of the Fishkill Creek District. There must never be a good cause, reason not to follow the law. If you give an applicant the opportunity, they will find a way to flip the switch on the narrative. One only has to follow a project that was removed from tonight's public hearing agenda. Follow their money trail, watch the meeting videos. I was at the meetings when the applicant told the board it could not find a commercial business to fill the space, but he didn't look far. The project also listed its partner's assets as a means to secure the project, and there was a lot of money on the table by its partners. Let them pony up. Let the developers come before you yet the developer comes before you saying they're lacking funds to develop the project as it was approved. Why give a green light if an applicant can come back to the table in the middle of a project and switch the game rules? They have high hopes to get the city council to play along. I say no to that idea. Do not approve this proposed amendment. You're suggesting current applicants and all future applicants can be issued a certificate of occupancy for the residential part of a Fishkill Creek development project before completing the non-residential part. Do not set up these scenarios because you know it will set a precedent for the future development of all Fishkill development projects for generations to come. Currently, the Fishkill Creek development project non-residential part must be finished before or at the same time as the residential part. Do not pass this new resolution. And again, I ask how and why a public hearing resolution change is on the same agenda as the resolution vote. I was assured that was not how it worked. Yet again, it's exactly how tonight's agenda is written. I feel a little lightheaded, you know, there's too much going on, too much traffic in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Clark Getman?
I reviewed the documents before the council today and find it incredibly corrupt. Signed by an attorney whose signature you can't possibly understand who in fact has signed the document. But with the exception of a addenda paragraph, which does not address item numbers 1 and 3 in the document, you have a document has no check marks and has not been filled out in the least bit. It is setting the city up for a lawsuit. It cannot be tolerated to have such shoddy, incomplete information brought to this council by your council. You can't possibly pay money for the garbage that's been presented. Moreover, there is absolutely no definition for just cause. Are they paying the city a sum of money? Are they offering additional affordable housing in what they have built? They bargained for a commercial property as a component to this to enhance the city's lifestyle. It is an environmental condition under the SEQR law. You are pretending as though it does not exist, and it amounts to typically shoddiness, but really in reality, criminally negligent. You cannot possibly lay down your good names to such incomplete affirmation against the law. You cannot say that the elimination of required commercial space is, oh, market conditions. That is a bunch of nonsense. Your endorsement of such nonsense will be your legacy. It is well known that the mixed-use proposal has an economic component that is to the benefit of the city residents in a walk-to-work place or in taxation. Mr. Cohn is very famous internationally for the activities of his mother in Madoff.
15 seconds.
You are getting in bed with a long-standing international criminal story that has not proven any guilt on behalf of the Cohns, who was released from culpability by Judge Popplewell in London after Judge Rakoff says it's an international issue as to the Madoff affair.
Thank you very much.
Inculcating the city with this kind of behavior in association
Your time's up.
is wrong.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else want to make a comment on this hearing who hasn't yet? Okay. Anyone online, Ben?
Yes, Mayor, we do have one hand raised online, and that is Arthur Kamens. Arthur, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I understand, good evening, everyone. I understand that the 248 Tiaranda concept plan is not on the agenda. However, the proposed zoning change came up related to it. As you know, according to the current zoning law, which was in effect when the development of 248 Tiaranda began, the required 25% non-residential was to be built out, quote, before or concurrently with the residential development of the site. Clearly, that was not the developer's intent. The two residential buildings were built first. Now he's asking for an exception. Granting it would be a bad precedent as a green light to skirt city intent and regulation. The good cause term is just too vague. I think the developer needs to provide a far more convincing evidence that attracting commercial tenancy is impossible. And I appreciate, Katie's argument about all the vacant commercial space in town. Maybe that's just because they're trying to charge too much, and for whatever reason can wait it out. In addition, if it's eventually determined that it is indeed impossible with really good evidence, an alternate benefit to Beacon should be required. And I appreciate the tax benefit to all this, but I think the amount is insufficient, as is an additional 6 below market rent units. So I agree that affordable housing is a priority. I'm not convinced that just building more housing addresses that. It demonstrably has not. And 10% is already the law. So if we're going to grant an exception here based on good evidence, we should at least require 50% below market rate, mixed use and affordable to a range of people in order to grant the exception. Otherwise, as a number of people have said, we're given a green light to just getting away with ignoring city regulations. And in this case, it seems like ignoring it with intent.
15 seconds.
Otherwise, the 3 buildings would have been built as required simultaneously. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ben?
No further Zoom speakers, Mayor.
Okay. I will just make one note, which is this public hearing is not about any particular property. It's about the ordinance that we have, and it's about allowing a CO to be issued for the completed residential portion of the property that's in the Fishkill Creek zone. It is not specific to any particular property, and we, at this point, make no opinion as to what would be appropriate. Also, as I understand it, and tell me if I'm wrong, Christian, the fact that we don't provide a lot of criteria is done to maximize the flexibility of the council in reaching a conclusion as to whether it's appropriate.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Having said all that, I appreciate all the public comment. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
So that was Molly and Pam. Any discussion before we do?
I just want to, if this law does pass, if a developer wants to get their CO, they have to come to the city council and ask for that, and that's that whole piece that we're voting on tonight.
That's right.
Yes.
I just needed clarification.
Okay.
I just wanted to check in to see if anybody had spoken to the Fishkill Creek Committee, the J.C. Calderon and the committee, where we've put aside 1 or 2 other topics related to the Fishkill Creek area because they were still working, but we're taking up this law, which could also impact the outcomes of their work. And so I was wondering if we got their input.
He's Fishkill Avenue.
Yes, but they're working on the zoning on the south side of Fishkill Avenue, which is the Fishkill Creek District Zone.
I don't think we can wait. I don't think they're even.
I think the zoning that's on Route 52 is not FCD zoning. I can take a quick look, but I don't think anyone's asked that of them. But I think the zoning on either side is either LI or GB. And I said I'll confirm that.
All right, I'll take a look too.
Yeah.
Just for public awareness, what's the timeline for hearing from that committee?
They haven't been asked anything. Oh, you mean in general?
Yeah.
I will ask them that next. I actually sent an email today saying, let's catch up. Everybody was on vacation like much of the council, so they're all back now. Okay.
The only other thing that I'll point out is, as thoroughly discussed in our workshop, the seeker form is complete.
Okay. So all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. So that takes care of the public hearing. Let's go to reports. And I will start with Paloma and work around the room.
Oh, tricky.
Right? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I thought you'd prefer it.
No.
Good.
I have no opinion
All right.
on the order. Well, in addition to the upcoming Spirit of Beacon Day in a few weeks, which I think is very exciting for everyone in the community, I wanted to note another event that's open to the public, which is in a series that has been put on about how do I electrify, which is to help educate the public about information about electrifying their home or purchasing an electric car, and really taking advantage of a number of state and regional subsidies that can help pay for that transition. And as the next installment of that series, Thomas Wright will be hosting an open house to talk about how he electrified his home, and also feature a home cooking demonstration on an induction stove put on by Beacon resident Jennifer Clare, who many people know. That will be on Wednesday, September 25th, from 7 to 8:30, again at Thomas's home, which is located at 24 Grove Street. And that's it for me for today.
Thank you. I wanted to announce at the same exact time, there is a fall pollinator meeting at on Wednesday, 9/25 at 7 p.m. at Beacon Rec on West Center Street. They're going to be kind of reviewing the season of the pollinator gardens with some photos, and there's going to be some giveaway prizes, they're saying, and for anybody who wants to learn about how to do a pollinator garden or want to share how they did with theirs, feel free to come. And also, I just wanted to double check, is this Saturday the last day for the bulk garbage drop-off at the transfer station?
For the fall?
For the fall.
Spring, yeah.
I believe it's the last day. It's free, but you can.
Right, you can drop,
still-
yeah, the
yeah.
free drop-off, I should say, free.
I have to check.
And then also, just a reminder, crosswalks, I know especially with the construction on Fishkill Avenue, it can get a little confusing, but, 2 incidents, one including myself, well, I guess I was included in both, but cars moving when people are in the middle of a crosswalk, they've got to be clear of it. I mean, I literally was in the middle. I could have knocked on the student going to be Beacon High last Tuesday morning. So just remind everybody, the crosswalks, let the pedestrians get through the crosswalks before you come in with your car. Thank you.
All right. No, I was going to talk about the electrification event, and I think it's an important one, and I hope if you can attend, you can be there on the 25th. I also just wanted to thank the Elks Club for their solemn commemoration of the September 11th ceremony on Wednesday last week, and it means a lot to me that the Elks provide this service. I used to work at Windows on the World, and actually worked at One Liberty Plaza up until September 8th, and lost coworkers on September 11th, and it means a lot to me that we have this service in Beacon, and that gives us the opportunity for that to reflect. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan, for noting that. I wasn't able to make it that evening as there was an event at the high school, but it was great to be able to go there in the morning. I chose a time when the planes hit because that meant something to me, and I also got to have the sergeant students going at the same time. Actually, that continuation of life kind of made it a special and a deeply reflective moment for myself. So I appreciate the Elks Lodge for hosting that and making that space happen the way that they did. As the plaque there says, for anyone who hasn't had a chance to check it out and would like to, they welcome all visitors, members of the public. A couple of things. I have office hours coming up this coming Friday, September 20th, from 4 to 6 p.m. at Pole Hill Park. So far, the weather looks good, but if it changes for any reason, I will be in Bank Square Coffee House. And one of the things you can come and talk to me about if you're interested is if you are interested in running for city council. All 6 of us, not including the mayor, will be up for election not this coming November, but next November. And you might say to yourself, geez, Molly, that's a long time away. But the way that it works is actually thinking about it now is actually a great time to do that, because starting in the new year is when some of the things start happening that you need to do in order to get on the ballot, and that's controlled by New York state law. So this is a great time if you're interested in being like, what's it all about? You don't have to commit to anything now, but now is a great time just to get input on it. There's no one here on council that I'm aware of who is definitely not interested in running again, so there's no announcement like that right now, but I just wanted to say this is a great time to get people to know we're always encouraging people who want to get involved. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure that's true for other members of council as well, particularly if you know what ward you're in and are interested in potentially running for a particular ward. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jeff.
Thanks, Molly. Very excited about the electrification events. I think those are great for informing people. If you can't make it, though, be aware that with the opportunity for air source heat pumps to transition away from fossil fuels for heating and cooling your home, doing air sealing and insulation is really important so that you don't overbuy your system. In essence, you can save money before you even start to invest in this equipment. And there are programs, one program in particular I talked about, that can help do that. So if you're interested in learning more about state and federal programs to subsidize the work on your home or business, there are opportunities out there, and I'm happy to share that information, which you can join me at my office hours on the following Friday, September 27th at Bank Square from 5 to 7 p.m. I'll be holding office hours there. And I will be should be, I think, hopefully launching this week in conversation and coordination with Ben, the survey that I referenced last time I was here. There'll be an opportunity, basically a running opportunity broken up by probably quarterly across the year for giving feedback on about 8 to 9 questions, just to make sure that people have multiple avenues to share their thoughts, concerns, questions, and ideas with us. So look forward to that. And I also forgot to mention that I did have my water meter changeover. It was a relatively painless process, but it is something important, and so if anyone has questions, happy to answer questions about that.
All right. I have 2 things. The first is just following up on a request from earlier in the year to meet with the planning board and exchange knowledge and information. And listening to some recent meetings, I think that's warranted. Another thing I'd like to throw out there is whether we consider issuing a memo to the planning board when we send things to them, so that it's clear why we're asking for their opinion. But anyway, I wanted to follow up on getting that scheduled. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, as you may know, I'm a member of the Hudson Highland Fjord Trail Visitation Data Committee. It has been a very interesting process. There are 2 events coming up in Beacon for you to consider learning more about the trail. The first one is next Monday. It's September 23rd from 3 to 6. They just have a pop-up in front of Beacon Reads, so they're just kind of outside, it's nothing very formal. Feel free to stop by. The next one is on Saturday, September 28th. It is encouraged that you register for this event on the Hudson Highland Fjord Trail website. It is one of their walk and talks, so they do this every month. September is at Beacon. It's at Long Dock Park, so their staff will be there. It's an hour and a half long to kind of walk the park, discuss some of the plans, proposed amenities, understand the timeline of the project elements, and, of course, provide some feedback. So those are some great opportunities to learn more about this really exciting opportunity for our community. And that is all I have.
Great. Thank you all for your comments. I'm always, I have the benefit of going last, so I don't have to repeat some things. I will repeat that I did miss the 9/11 ceremony at the Elks Club, and I apologize for that. Oddly enough, I'm in less control of my schedule now than I was a few months ago, so that are work-related things. I do note on Route 52, I am looking at the zoning map, and the railroad tracks, there is no FCD zoning north of the railroad tracks, and 52 is in all cases north of the railroad tracks. The zoning around 52 is either LI or GB. There's a little piece of RD5, as you know, at the, what's the name of the brick buildings? Groveville, right? There's a little RD5, but the FCD hugs the creek and is always south of the train tracks. So just that. Then also on Route 52, I had the opportunity, I have got my bike in the area now, so I've been riding it with some frequency. And I've spent a fair amount of time on Route 52, and in particular looking at how safe it is and how wide it is on the road, and my own 2 cents is I don't want to ride on that street. But what I am excited by is the opportunities to create connections between the rail trail and Route 52 and the rest of the city. And it's really apparent to me, and I've laid out several of them and have pushed it on to the chair of the Route 52 committee. But anyone who wants to talk to me, I'm very happy to talk you through where those connections are. Obviously, at the east end of town, the tracks are directly adjacent and at grade with the road. So I'm hoping there's a park there, a place for bikes to stop, a bus stop ends up there, you know, et cetera. But then as you start from the other end of town, I note that most of the map of Beacon, if you're riding a bike from where you live to try to get to Route 52, you're going to end up on the fjord trail, you're going to end up on the rail trail first for probably 80+% of the community. The rest of the community, it looks like on the west side, obviously Herbert Street and Main Street are entrance points. Hannah Lane is a very easy one. It takes 30 seconds to get from Hannah Lane down and onto the rail trail. The bike place that does the bike rentals, the electric bike rentals, already has a connection. They opened it up on their own on their property, and obviously they would be very excited to have the bike path connect there because obviously it's related directly to their business. Identified a few other locations as well, and I imagine that in the sections where the rail line is dropping down and getting further away from the road, that our zoning, and that was what was included in the memo that I sent to the committee when I charged that committee, would consider zoning that would require the construction of buildings that face both directions. So for instance, bike racks, stairs, ramp to get from the bike side to the road side. And that's what I saw, and I'm very excited by it because I think we will be able to get the rail trail sooner than you think. Amber, on the fjord trail, I appreciate your involvement. I think it makes a difference. And I'm very excited at the prospects since we've heard that the first phase of their work is the around Breakneck Ridge. That's going to continue because it's an absolute bottleneck and nightmare. But their second phase, which they had originally thought would be in the southern communities, is being put off. And I'm excited about the prospect of having things being done here for the Fjord Trail and in support of our own trail system here. And so I'm looking forward to those discussions, and I'm hopeful that there may bear some fruit. Chris is also working with the Fjord Trail on a maintenance facility. They've agreed in concept to put their maintenance facility for the Fjord Trail at our sewage treatment plant and transfer facility, which is a great benefit, I think, for all of us and them as well, since it's directly adjacent to the trail. I also attended the 10th anniversary of the distillery on Chestnut. They have some fine Beacon scotches and whatever things. I'm not much of a drinker. And then I also attended the 30th anniversary of Bannerman's Trust, the Bannerman's Island Trust. And I just marvel at the dedication and the passion of the original founder, that's Neil Kaplan and Darlene Swan, and then all the people that have been involved over the years. I think they've done amazing success in bringing that forward. There's still lots to do, and they're doing it on shoestrings, and so I just want to congratulate them for their effort, and I'm very appreciative because it helps the community. That's all I got. Chris?
So in response to Pam's question, we are taking bulk garbage for free until Saturday. The transfer station is open Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday from 7:30 to 2:30, and you can bring up to 250 pounds for the free dump. If you have more than that, it generally is 18 cents a pound. You know, if you have more, don't hesitate in coming down. We do weigh it in. You do have to provide proof of residency. Paloma asked last week for an update on the skate park, and I forgot to do that during the meeting and then gave the council kind of an informal update. But just to get that on the record, Paloma had asked about the status of the participatory budgeting upgrades. And we decided to go beyond the upgrades that were suggested last year and just redo that whole piece of the park. So hopefully this fall, but possibly next spring, we're going to be resurfacing the entire thing and then also buying new elements so that we have kind of a new renovated park. So thanks for asking about that. Just a couple updates on the water meters. We have now crossed 1,000 households that have been completed, so we're at about 22%. People are going to be getting the third round of letters, so if, as they're getting them, they're calling us to make sure that this is real, and so far it's going quite well. I did want to let people know we're going to begin milling and paving towards the end of September and early October. We're completing 34 ADA ramp improvements to make them in compliance with our funding sources. And we are also continuing on our Fishkill Avenue, Teller Avenue sidewalks. People have raised questions about that, so I had put something on our website. But generally, we're doing the sidewalks that we can, then we're doing the drainage structures that are being replaced. So some of the areas that don't have sidewalks, you have drainage structures going in. And at the end, yes, the road will be repaved. People have asked that, and they have said, well, why are you doing the sidewalks and not the street? That gets done last. And then finally, I just wanted to let the council know we did finally put out to bid the dewatering system upgrade at the wastewater treatment plant, and we hope to bring you bids in mid-October on that. All right, thank you.
Okay. So the first resolution is one naming the plaza at the Veterans Memorial Building the First Lieutenant Francis G. Petty Square.
Motion.
Second.
That was Amber and Dan, and I'll read it. It's not that long, so I'll read it in its entirety. So, the first thing to note is that P-E-A-T-T-I-E is pronounced Petty. I had to learn that, so Francis G. Petty. Whereas the City of Beacon owns the Veterans Memorial Building located at 423 Main Street and is leased by the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign War, the Marine Corps League, and Guardian Revival. And whereas the Veterans Organization completed a significant renovation and improvement to the plaza in front of the Veterans Memorial Building to Main Street, which the Veterans Organizations have petitioned the City Council to name as First Lieutenant Francis G. Petty Square in honor of his service to the City of Beacon as both a firefighter and to the United States during World War II. Whereas Lieutenant Francis G. Petty was born on November 19, 1918, in the City of Beacon, where he later served the community as a volunteer firefighter, and on January 8, 1942, Petty enlisted in the U.S. Army and was commissioned as a second lieutenant to serve overseas in World War II, after which he was promoted to first lieutenant. First Lieutenant Francis Petty was stationed in New Guinea, where he flew as a bombardier on missions throughout the region with the 43rd Bombardment Group and the 65th Bomber Squadron. On June 26, 1943, First Lieutenant Petty made the ultimate sacrifice for his country and was declared dead after being shot down during a mission over the Bismarck Sea. And whereas First Lieutenant Petty was posthumously awarded the Silver Star with the Oak Leaf Cluster, the Distinguished Flying Cross Air Medal, the Bronze Star Medal, and Purple Heart. On February 18, 2020, the Beacon City Council adopted a municipal naming policy which provides a uniform policy for naming city-owned assets in a manner that enhances the value and heritage of the city and requires the council to formally adopt the proposed name change by resolution. And whereas the City Council has reviewed the request for naming of Veterans Memorial Plaza and deemed the request consistent with the criteria set forth in the municipal naming policy. Now therefore be it resolved, the City Council hereby names the Veterans Memorial Building Plaza as First Lieutenant Francis G. Petty Square in honor and remembrance of Lieutenant Petty's service and sacrifice on behalf of the City of Beacon and our nation. Any discussion?
I was curious from last time we talked about if we could get any more content from what was shared at the Memorial Building event that kind of got more into Lieutenant Petty's service, particularly to the City of Beacon. And I was wondering if I know it wasn't, we talked about potentially getting in the packet. I saw it wasn't there, so I just wanted to follow up and see what was available.
We didn't receive any additional information, although it was requested.
The one thing I didn't see in the resolution was this interesting bit that although they thought the plane was shot down over the Bismarck Sea, it was actually shot down over New Guinea, and the plane was located many years later, like the 60s or 80s, and it was visited by the one surviving member of the bomber, who then brought the remains and identified those of Petty's, and Petty is buried in Beacon off Washington Avenue in St. Joachim Cemetery. And that's all I got. Wish I had more. Okay, so I'll bring this to a vote. All in favor of naming the Veterans Memorial Building Plaza, that's not the street, but just the plaza, the First Lieutenant Francis G. Petty Square, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Second item is a resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement with Scape Landscape Technology for the sidewalk replacement project on West Center Street. Can I get a motion and second, and then have Chris explain it?
Motion.
Second.
So that was Paloma and Molly. And Chris, could you give us some detail?
Sure.
Thank you.
As we discussed at last week's council meeting, we have been moving towards replacing 660 feet of sidewalk on the south side of West Center Street between South Avenue and the Recreation Center. We did not have for you last week the low bidder, but we opened bids on Wednesday. We had 5 bids, and the low bidder was Scape Tech Landscape Technology out of Carmel. And we have actually worked with them. They did our ADA ramps last year under the name Contact, but it's the same company. So we had a good experience with them. They are the low bidder at $190,966. Now, some of you may have seen in the packet, we did have the wrong digits there. We had 196, but that's been updated. This work is being funded by Dutchess County Planning and Development under the CDBG program. Our allocation is about 198, so this fits within the allocation, and we hope to begin work as soon as we can get under contract. So if you approve it tonight, we're going to run with it, try to get it done this year. We are not currently proposing to replace the sidewalks on the other side of the street, which are in also poor condition and blocked with utility poles, and we're looking at the possibility of maybe just returning that to a clean curb line. But there's nothing else on that street for now. And then we will be doing part of West Center Street when we mill and pave, and once we decide what to do with the north side sidewalk, then we'll mill and pave this piece of roadway.
Chris, I noticed that the bids that came back, including the lowest bid, were slightly higher than the engineer's estimate. I was just curious if there was any insight into what it was that actually cost more than we anticipated it to.
No, I don't know, Molly, because originally we had asked for about a $200,000 project, and I don't remember the engineer estimate being this low. Okay. So I'm not clear where the city engineer got that. But we had always anticipated we try to do enough sidewalk to use up our allocation. They do let us carry a little bit over, but not a lot. So I'm not sure what makes that up.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so all in favor of authorizing the city administrator to execute this agreement for the West Center sidewalk replacement project, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, we have some amendments to the 2024 budget.
Motion.
So that was a motion to
Second.
adopt the amendments. And there are a motion and a second by Amber and Pam. And just to clarify the motion, it's $65,000 for a child care workers bonus and Social Security associated with that coming out of state aid. Severance pay of $238,000 coming largely by matching additional revenue from state funding, and a small amount for contingency out of the retirement side. And then the third one is $193,000 for overtime in the police budget, and that's coming from regular salaries of the police budget because we don't have enough regular salaried officers, and so we're using it for overtime. So that's the motion. I assume that the motion and second agreed those were the three items?
Yep.
All right. Any discussion? And unless you want to add anything to that, Chris?
No, that was perfect.
Okay. Not hearing any further discussion, all in favor of those three amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Christian, we don't have to do a roll call, or do we?
No.
No.
I think we're good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The fourth item is the local law number 9, which is concerning the amendment to the Fishkill Creek Development District regarding certificates of occupancy. Can I get a motion and a second on that one?
Motion.
Second.
So that was Molly and Amber. Christian introduced this as part of the public hearing. I will just add, from my end, one of the comments I heard was this was a problem of the city's making. I'm actually in full agreement and was expecting to use exactly the same language. In fact, the person probably most responsible was me as a council member, because at the time we thought that no one could have imagined that residential housing would be in extreme shortage and that commercial property would be an extreme glut. And the view was getting some commercial would be good. We built in an out clause, which we knew enough to do, which was the ability for a change of use of the commercial point. But we didn't understand at the time that the CO issue could prevent housing from coming online. And the situation that we now face is, in the New York metro region, we have an extreme shortage of housing, both regular and affordable. And if the opposite situation were in the case and we were in glut, rents would be plummeting. So, it's direct cause of that shortage. And at the same time, there is a substantial glut of commercial space, in particular office space. I looked up on a national source that commercial office space is actually declining in square footage right now. And so that's just unheard of. Ordinarily, you talk about 2, 3, 4% growth of the different categories. It's in decline. The other decline that's occurring right now in commercial is retail, and in particular malls and big box stores. They're also in decline, and all those areas now are going through the process of understanding how to convert to residential. And you're seeing that in New York City. I think it's actually great because you can start to convert. It's hard to convert a modern building because it's so big and the elevators are in the middle and the bathrooms are in the middle. But the older ones can be converted, and I'm seeing malls go to conversion. So I don't think we understood that. I don't know if we could have predicted that when we passed this. I think that the relief valve we put in was good, but we missed the point about the certificate of occupancy. So I'm supportive of giving us this authority to allow housing units to come online and allow them to go into the tax base and allow the affordable units to come on as well. So thanks.
Lee, if I can just add one thing also, when we had that development forum in February 2020, right before the pandemic,
yeah,
the crowd, everybody in the room wanted more commercial because everybody wanted local jobs.
Right, exactly.
Everybody was upset about having to go other places to work.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a laudable goal. I just think we need some flexibility if the markets are wrong right now, which they are, right?
I think one of the reasons why I've had some hesitation about this particular one is that, you know, we in Beacon have a real shortage of medical offices and specialists. You know, if you live in Beacon and you need to go to the doctor other than Sun River, you're usually going somewhere else, Westage, Vassar. I mean, our pediatrician is in New Windsor. And so my hope has always been that by having commercial zoning with enough space would be an invitation for medical offices to come to Beacon, and that's a hope of mine. Still, and I'm hoping that maybe sometime down the road we can take a look at some kind of medical zoning and maybe choose an area of town. You can be very specific with zoning, is my understanding, so that, you know, maybe we could kind of look at a part of town that we want to open up to doctors' offices and more medical care. But I just want to put that out there too.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Dan. And I'll say, I mean, specifically what's changing in this legislation is literally one sentence. The existing legislation has, I think, about 11 different uses for commercial office space. So I would certainly suggest that anybody who might appear before the council to show good cause is coming with a very complete and fully thought out body of evidence around that and how they've addressed any of those 11 factors. I'll also say that I think the addition that we talked about last week, where we added the upon imposition of such conditions as the council deems appropriate, really helps us to continue crafting this and shaping what we do think is appropriate in that area. I'm also not necessarily prepared to say that mixed use or commercial is not viable, but I think it's helpful for us to have the option to allow housing that we know is in shortage and that we know is needed in the community upon conditions and with good cause. So
I have a technical question, I think, for you, Christian. I'm just your legal opinion on, in one sentence we say that the non-residential must be built out before or concurrently with the residential development of the site, and then in the very next new sentence we say we allow CEOs to the non-residential component, but before the non-residential component being completed. So I wasn't sure legally how those two things could mesh together and what that exact needle is that we're threading.
The addition modifies the sentence immediately preceding it, and also this doesn't necessarily affect when they would be building out or necessarily getting the underlying, foundations laid and putting up walls. It's just those final permitting process in order to get the certificate of occupancy. That's what this would allow. So
our good cause could get into that if we had an applicant to say, where are you in meeting all the elements of this law?
Exactly. And to Dan's point, perhaps if there would be a medical tenant, they need to install certain equipment or things in there, and they need to order it and, custom install it. So they can't open up the commercial until that equipment gets delivered and installed. But now they would be able to open up that residential aspects.
Yeah, Dan, on the medical, I'm with you. I've talked to my docs about, what it would take. And I thought, well, maybe, Camp Beacon, if it ever opened up, and it was like, nope, you need an off-ramp there, like off the highway. So
that would be perfect.
I know,
otherwise.
but it's like, that's about $50 or $100 million of federal transportation money or something. I don't know the number, I'm making it up. But the one thing I have seen is that the medical offices have gotten very close to our border. There's a building right at, adjacent to the 84 Diner. And so the one possibility would be on Route 52. They'd probably do a tear down to make it work because they need very specialized things. But I would hope that would be a permitted use right in there because they're already pretty close. So, okay. Anything else on this?
Yeah, I would just say, I think it's important because the public, I know I've gotten some questions about what exactly are we doing here. So think of it as this law, if we were to pass it, allows any applicant who this applies to the ability to come to us and we can consider them for a C of O exception for their residential component. It is not us granting it because we would then, the way that we've written the law is good cause will be based on what that applicant presents to us. Amber gave a great example of those 11 conditions that we don't need to get into right now, but we do hope any applicant takes that in consideration This law also doesn't have anything to do with whether we want commercial there at all. There is a separate clause already in the law, which if they came to us for a site plan amendment separately, that was the item that was tabled, then they could say, I want this, and we would also need to consider it under what conditions are and whether or not they give other public benefit. So if we choose to pass this law tonight, we are not saying that any particular development would actually qualify under this. It just gives us the ability to consider if we want to grant them that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I think it's really helpful, because it's kind of hard to understand how this is working, but you've got it exactly right.
It helped that someone asked me and I wrote it all out, so I appreciate the people who've asked me about it too.
All right. Other comments? Okay, so all those in favor of adopting Local Law 9 concerning the Certificate of Occupancy section of the Fishkill Key Development District, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh,
I was going to suggest the SECRA, the negative determination.
oh, you want us to make that one first?
Yeah, make the SECRA
Sorry.
determination.
So is there a secret motion?
There is. It's all one resolution.
But do you think we should
Yeah,
consider
but
it
wouldn't you
separately?
vote on one resolution?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
So voting on this one resolution, it not only adopts a negative secret determination, but it also adopts the local law.
Got it. So you're saying a yes vote is saying there's a negative declaration on SECRA?
Yes.
And then also making the change to the statute?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. And all in favor then of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Oh, well, now we have the minutes of September 3rd. I'm looking for a motion and a second to adopt the minutes of September 3rd.
Motion.
Second.
Dan and Molly. Discussion? Corrections? Additions? Deletions?
They looked good to me.
General comments? Curlicues?
I appreciate, I'm not sure if Mercedes was the one who put them together, Ben might still be on vacation, so if she was, thank you for doing that.
I don't know the answer to that.
Ben did them, but with great notes from Mercedes.
It
All
was
right.
a team effort then,
It
so I
was
appreciate
really
both of
a
them.
team, yeah.
All right, so all in favor of approving the minutes of September 3rd, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, this is the second opportunity for public comments. If you haven't made a public comment at the first one, other than in the public hearing, you could make a comment here. And so, yeah, if you want. But just not on the public hearing topic.
Not really. It's a couple of topics.
Yeah.
But I guess you'll kick me out if I'm cheating. Katie, Ward 1, A Little Beacon Blog. I wanted to comment on the selectiveness of which developers could move forward, like the ability to consider which are resisted against. Months ago, when the condo community, The Muse on Eliza Street, went bankrupt, they requested permission to seek financing per condo instead of on the entire multi-unit project. There was no shocked speculation of how they miscalculated their building or if they even miscalculated. There was hardly any question about it at all. The financing arrangement was voted in, and that stalled, dead construction project with paper blowing in the wind is back under construction, hopefully to be completed for people to move into. At the 925 Walcott Avenue boarding house that burned down with arson, allegedly by a former tenant who was staying there in poor conditions, that was set to offer apartments but was denied so that it could become a single-family house. The property owner sold the property because it ruined his business model and reduced the amount of apartments people could move into. It is now going to be a beautiful house, which is great, but the loss of what was several apartments there for decades is not something that I understand. As for the Fishkill Family Dollar, this is a request for the Fishkill Committee and this council. Back in the time of the former city planner, John Clark, he indicated that he wanted, this is how I heard him, he wanted to zone out stores like the Family Dollar. This was dismissive of people like myself who shop at the Family Dollar, who need or want to. As for the ADA components on Main Street, if this was the same company who did it last year, was this the same company who did the ADA bump outs that needed to be redone to match the crosswalks? And can you clarify as to who did those repairs? Was it the City of Beacon's Highway Department or a different contractor? I do agree with the commenter Arthur that building owners are aiming far too high for their rent and that the realtors who are encouraging them to do that are also not realistic. In 2020, when I moved out of the building that I was in the telephone building, The new owner not only wanted a higher square footage and new tax and other things that I wasn't paying for before, he also wanted 20% of my event business. I declined and I moved out. So it is for mixed reasons why commercial may be precarious here in Beacon or anywhere. It seems to also, I think there's a new urgent care center coming on Main Street that's being built next to Key Food that keeps being built, so that might be helpful. And I love Sun River Health. It's very convenient. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who didn't speak in a public comment in the first one? I don't see anyone here. Ben, is there anyone in the virtual audience who didn't speak in the first public comment opportunity?
Yes, Mayor, we do have one hand raised online. That is Arthur Kamens. Arthur, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Yep, that's right.
Hi again, everybody. Just one quick comment. Several meetings ago, Beacon passed a new good cause eviction law, and at the time, a number of folks who spoke urged the city to make it the components of that law and to whom it applies available to everyone, so everyone knows what their rights are. I don't know whether any efforts have been made in that regard. I haven't heard anything. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I haven't heard anything. So I am urging you again to make a vigorous attempt to make the components of that law known and available to people, and to make vigorous efforts for, beyond that, for renters to know their rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ben?
No further speakers on Zoom.
The next meeting will be a workshop. It will not be next Monday. Next Monday is the fourth Monday of a 5-Monday month, and the workshop will be held on the 5th Monday, which will be the one immediately preceding the first meeting, the first formal meeting in October. So that will be on September 30th at 7 p.m. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Second?
So Molly and Dan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Okay.
Record.